find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of Joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening, come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of Joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. If we put in the time. Good evening, come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of Joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome in to Day 5 trial recap in the trial of Lori Daybell for conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of her niece's estranged husband, Brandon Boudreaux. Welcome, everybody in chat. This is a co-stream between my channel, Joe Schmoe, and Trial TV Live with my co-host, the Squeegee of Justice.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm tired for some reason. Today was just emotionally draining, and I think a lot of other people felt it too.
I'm getting that sense just going through chat and listening to you, and yeah, it seems like it was maybe it's just the end of this, right? It's just everything's coming to a head right now.
Yeah, and I think so, and I think we're all kind of anticipating maybe we would get a verdict today, because we got done with jury instructions at 2:45, and if they get back to their jury room and they're all on the same page, then it's possible. And there were people saying it was. So spoiler alert, we didn't get a verdict today.
I was shocked when we ended, closing arguments ended. And I'm like, okay, so now let's start the verdict clock. And I'm sitting. Then somebody's like, they went home. And I'm like, what? So I went to your page and 2:59, they went home. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That was literally like 15 or 20 minutes? Or
15,
half hour?
Yeah.
15.
15 minutes.
But then somebody reminded me they did that in the Charles Vallow.
Yep, they sure did. Almost identical timing. Yeah. Almost identical. I think in Charles Vallow's case, they may have been there a little bit longer, like 25-ish minutes before they decided to go home. But
right,
it's almost identical.
What's up with this jury?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's odd, but the timing of it makes sense. Because, we got through with Agent Balance's testimony right at lunchtime, take a lunch break, come back, read the jury instructions, have closing arguments. And the closing arguments were a little bit shorter than last time, but still by the time they get through all of that, it's about the exact same time that happened in Charles Vallow. So they may be a little bit emotionally exhausted too.
Yeah.
Both sides made emotional appeals in closing arguments.
Lori got emotional there. You're right.
Yeah. And Trina K talked a lot about the marital struggles between Brandon and Melani and how Lori, meddled in that marriage. And in her rebuttal. So yeah, it could have been an emotional toll, and they're all just like, okay, we're done for the day. Let's go home, get some sleep, and come back with fresh brains and some new energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she Moonchild says Trina let her have it. Yeah, during rebuttal she came out.
Oh my gosh,
She came back
was
firing.
awesome.
She came back firing.
And we're gonna watch that later because there's no way that we can encapsulate that without actually watching it. So we're gonna watch that later, and we'll probably watch Lori's before that because you could hear Trina K getting madder and madder and madder, and by the time it came for her to do rebuttal, I mean, she is so incensed at Lori's breaking the rules. I mean, that's what Trina K, Trina K may have asked some leading questions here and there, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Even today she did.
Yeah.
Nick Ballins was like, wait, how can you ask me that question? Oh, okay, I'll answer the question.
He was a really good witness. I don't remember him in Lori's trial, but I thought he was a really good witness. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, me too. He did a really good job of explaining it at the layman's level, but also offering the technical expertise side of it. So even as a layman, you're like, I don't necessarily understand it, but I understand how I can understand it.
Right. Yeah.
And the huge things that I got from his testimony were the differences between Google location data and Verizon cell tower pings.
Right.
And Lori did not understand that. She did not get it. I mean, she kept asking like ridiculous questions, like, "Can you explain the meters thing again to me?"
Yeah.
And he tried, and he kind of got somewhere with her, but she didn't get it.
At one point, I think she said, "Oh, okay, yeah." Like she's like you. I've been in those situations where I just don't understand. I'm just like, "Yeah, sure."
Right.
Let's just move on. Let's just get the conversation moving forward.
Right.
Instead of no, I'm just a complete idiot. And I just do not understand. I cannot comprehend. So she laid one of those out there. I caught that.
I have been there myself. Like, yeah, okay, I totally understand. I totally get it. We can stop talking about it now.
Right. Just as long as there's no test or quizzes, I'm good.
Right. Exactly.
So, all right.
So
where do you want to start? Yeah, let's go.
Right here to start the day. While so when I went home last night, these motions dropped, and I intended to post them last night, and I just ran out of steam, and I didn't. So I was like, I'm going to get to the courthouse early. I'm going to sit on the steps. I'm going to post them. And Nate Eaton beat me by like 45 minutes posting.
Oh.
Like, dang you, Nate Eaton! No
curses, Nate.
But there were two motions filed by Lori, handwritten motions dated June 9th, which is Monday.
Yeah.
So after court Monday, she sat in her jail cell and wrote out these love letters to Judge Boreski and Judge Green. And the most important one is this motion to dismiss. This is to dismiss Boreski and Green. She wants to dismiss them both because she can't get away with them. We're not going to go into details of them. I just wanted to show, instead of working on her cross-examination of Detective, why did my mind just go blank? The one from Rexburg. Hermosillo.
Hermosillo, yeah.
Yeah, Hermosillo. So she didn't ask him any cross questions. You know why? Because she was busy writing these love letters, handwriting. And I think that's pencil. I don't even think that's pen. I think that's pencil.
Yeah, looks like pencil to me.
Yeah.
Well, let's compare her to Sarah Boone. Can you zoom in a little bit? Let me see her handwriting again. Interesting. Is she left-handed or right-handed?
I'm pretty sure she's right-handed.
I think so too. And yet her writing goes backwards.
Yeah. Yep.
Which shows. I'm sure that shows something. Like you should write. The angle should be your dominant hand, and if you're writing backwards, it shows something like.
Right.
Shows something. Yeah, I don't know. My dad used to get into that, and he used to analyze my handwriting all the time.
So she complains that she was abused, that Judge Boreski abused her, that he forced her to come to court, that she had a bacterial infection and a virus, and he made her come to court anyway. He forced her to take medication. And there actually was a little thing where I think her her advisory council might have said something like, "I don't even think that's legal." And that was during that off the record. So we were in recess, and the judge came out of the side door, and I heard the word ibuprofen, and I wonder if it has to do with that. But she also says his explosive behavior. Right here, see this?
So this is when he kicked her out. Is that what she's referring to?
Yes.
When he kicked her out? Okay. And she's like, "Don't talk, don't yell at me, or don't talk." Yeah.
And once again, this is about being on TV. This is on court TV.
Mm-hmm.
She's worried about this on TV. Anyway, we'll do deeper dives into that at a later time. We don't have time today. There's way too much stuff.
Sure.
So that was before court. I posted those on X. Nate posted those a little bit before me. I haven't checked Justin Lum's feed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through. And then, so Ms. K says something interesting. She says, "My first witness's face can't be shown on TV." And I'm like, first witness? Are there more than one? Ended up only being one. So Nick Balance takes us through his, we get his CV. He's on the CAS team, the FBI CAS team, which is cellular analysts. And then he takes us through his report. Go ahead.
If I may, real quick. So we did a poll. So 95 votes. What does Mr. Balance look like? So 55% of you said dark hair, ponytail, beard, medium build. 32% of you thought blonde, short hair, tall. And 11% of you thought red hair, man bun, short. So just have that in the back of your mind as we go through.
Okay, so dark hair,
ponytail,
facial, no ponytail, no pony, no man bun, no ponytail, no
beard and medium.
He has somewhere in between a goatee and a beard. Like he's got the full goatee, but like the hair that's like growing up the side of his face is like petering out before it actually like connects to his sideburns. Okay. Not quite Alan Jackson style in the Karen retrial right now. And he's younger than middle-aged. I would consider him younger than middle-aged.
Okay.
And he is, for people who asked, he is attractive. I mean, he's a good-looking man.
Does he have a ring on that finger?
I didn't look. I didn't ask.
All right.
He may not be able to, because he also works undercover for the FBI, which is why his face couldn't be shown. So he's working on some cases undercover, and you probably have to be able to wear or not wear a wedding band depending on what your cover is.
True. Okay. Now that we got the most important thing out of the way.
Right.
So you left off with CAS, the Cellular Analyst Survey Team.
Yes, right. So then he takes us through his report. Basically, I mean, after we go through his CV, he prepared a report for this case at the request of Gilbert PD. He analyzed 3 phone numbers. One was Lori's main phone number, one was Alex's main phone number, and the other one was this track phone from the Walmart purchased in Idaho Falls on September 25th and activated on September 26th. Let me scroll down here. I've got 2 computers and I've got 2 fingers, and I have to activate the correct finger at the right time to scroll down on the correct screen. There's a CV. He talks about the general methodology. He talks about what cell phone towers look like. And then he talks about the Google reports and then margin of error. So when Google reports are Google location data that gets returned to you on a Google warrant. There is a margin of error that's designated with an R. R is a radius. So you have a point where it pings, and then you draw a circle around that. That radius is in meters. So R14 means there are 14 meters radius from that point of uncertainty. So that's 28 meters diameter. 28 meters is about 80, 85 feet. So the diameter of that circle around that point would be like 85 feet. The radius, half of that, 42, 43 feet. That was something I didn't know. That Google location data comes back with a specific uncertainty, quantified uncertainty, which is what I asked for in Karen Reed all along, and I never heard that from any of the cellular experts. So I learned from Agent Balance today. And then we see their cell phones. So Lori's bounces off of or pings off of a tower. Alex's hit some Wi-Fi spots inside the Walmart when they bought the phone. So both of them were, near that Walmart that day when the burner phone was bought. And here's something that strikes me, that if I were a defense attorney for Lori, which I'm not, Trina K keeps referring to this as a burner phone. And that could be prejudicial to the jury. It is a track phone, and to call it a burner phone is potentially prejudicial.
Has negative connotations.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. And there's no proof at this point. There's no foundation to call it a burner phone.
Yeah.
So I would have objected to that from the very beginning, the very first time that she called it a burner phone, and then that word better not come out of her mouth for the rest of the trial.
Yeah.
But it did many, many times, including in closing. So he activates the burner phone, calls Chad's phone. And then at the same time, Alex's phone on October 1st moves from his apartment, his townhouse. I'm going to call it apartment just because it's easier, to Lori's. That was interesting to me because, so remember when I had the problem with them living together last night? It looks like they weren't actually living together. It was just really weird that apartment was completely cleaned out and like ready to move in when they executed the search warrant.
Right.
That was a problem we can, I don't have to worry about anymore. And then on October 1st, it's at the storage units. And Lori's phone utilizes a cell tower that could place her at the storage units. So Google location data is generally more accurate than cell tower pings. We learned this today. I don't think that Lori had learned it. So Google location data is, generally it sounds like has that uncertainty of about, 14 meters. It could be if you have enough devices, if you have enough Wi-Fi hotspots that you're around, it can place you more accurately than that.
Right. And wasn't he talking about the amount of apps you have on tracking you? Like the more tracking you have on your phone, obviously the more data that's being collected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just Google Maps. Like most of our apps ask us to provide them with location sharing.
Yep. And I turn them all off.
I don't have all of them off, but
I think my radar is about the only thing I keep on. I know how to crime, Joe. Trust me. Stick with me.
I gotcha. All right. I learned something new tonight. I got to go check my phone. Hold on a second. I'm going to check my phone. So on October 1st at 5:17 p.m., Alex's phone, that's his main phone, not his burner phone. I'm going to call it burner phone because I'm not in court.
Yeah.
Alex's main phone is at or near the Rexburg, Idaho LDS temple. And I doubt if he was going to the temple. And in closing arguments, Trina said, Lori was trying to create an alibi for him by carrying his phone all around town for those couple of days when he was out of town. On October 2nd, at 8:02 in the morning, there was an outgoing call. Have I skipped stuff? Like I'm on October 2nd.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what exactly, it's all good. I mean, nothing too well. You missed the call to Chad's phone on October 1st.
No, I got that.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yep, I got that.
The 3 locations.
That was the burner phone on October 1st at 9:19 in the morning.
Okay. Storage
And
unit.
that was the one from, I think that was the first one from Arizona. So his his phone pinged off of a tower because they did a call like to the service provider the day after they activated it, or the day they activated it, September 26th. And then the next time it was used was on that October 1st down in Arizona for that call to Chad's phone.
Oh, what about that Lori and Alex were in the Walmart together and Melani calls?
Yes. Melani calls Lori. Yeah. I'm going to guess that Lori's probably in the parking lot waiting for Alex to go in and do his thing. I'm guessing she didn't want to be seen on the security cams. So she's sitting out in the car and Melani calls her. Melani's trip was also September 26th, but this Walmart visit was September 25th. So Melanie's probably making plans saying, all right, I got a flight coming in tomorrow into Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
And Trina K really did a good job, like tying that all together, the timeline together. Like I literally wrote down every single thing that she was talking about on the timeline. And it was clarifying.
Good.
So I think I scrolled down too far. LDS Temple. Okay. Then on October 2nd at 7 o'clock in the morning, more or less, in Gilbert, Arizona, the burner phone pings off of towers near Melani's house. So
you said that yesterday or the day before. You were wondering if we were going to get Alex's cell data near Melani, and you were right.
Yep. I'm guessing that he either spent the night there, or they said that he Googled another location in Mesa after he went to Los Favoritos. And that may have been a hotel. So he may have actually stayed in a hotel in Mesa and then gone to Melani's house at 7 o'clock. They finish up their conspiracy plan, whatever. But no. The night before he Googled the directions to Brandon's house. But I don't know that we ever heard if he Googled directions from where he was in Mesa, if he was in Mesa, or if he Googled directions from Melani's house. We don't know where he Googled directions from the night before. We do know that the morning of, he Googled directions from the area of Melani's house to the area of Brandon's house. Well, to Brandon's exact address.
Yeah.
Then let's see. On October 2nd, okay, we get the phone call from Lori's phone to Alex's main phone for like 23 minutes and 34 seconds. That's the alibi phone call to say, hey, I called Alex, at 8 o'clock Arizona time, and he answered his phone up here in Rexburg. He wasn't down in Arizona.
Yeah, nothing to see here. Everything's copacetic.
And that day, Alex's phone, and in fact, the entire time, we learned through several questions that Alex's phone never left Lori's apartment after he brought it there from his apartment before he left. So he brings it there September 30th, I think, heads down south to Phoenix, and before he leaves, he drops his phone off there. So she carries it around town with her. She calls it, trying to create an alibi. Not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Lori's phone is also at Lori's apartment. On October 2nd at 8:50 to 9:46, she has 2 outgoing calls and 3 incoming calls. So this is right around the time of the shooting. She has an incoming call for Melani. I don't remember if Melani's is incoming or outgoing. But
Lori calls. Lori calls Melani. Yeah.
Okay. And then 4 calls are to and from Chad's phone.
Yeah. Don't forget, at least I have earlier, that Chad and Alex talked 3 times between 8:36 and 9:16.
Oh, is that up above?
Yeah, that's what I have up above.
I missed that.
Like above that.
Oh yeah. Gosh darn it. That was right. That was my note right above that. How did I skip right past that?
Yeah, it's okay.
October 2nd, 8:39 to 9:16. So this is the time right around the shooting. The burner phone was hitting off towers that were near Brandon's house, and there were 3 outgoing and 2 incoming calls between him and Chad Daybell.
Yeah.
And Chad Daybell is the only person that had calls to or from that burner phone. And then from 9:19 to 9:22, the phone hits off of towers that are headed southeast of Brandon's house. And then we'll learn later that he starts Googling points north, destinations north. And he starts heading north. Holbrook, I think, is his first, Google map directions. So he heads up to Holbrook, then he Googles the next destination, the next, and the next, on up north, back towards Idaho. And the very last one pings in Utah that evening of the 2nd, and then it goes off network. And we don't know if it goes off network because it goes like in some valleys or something between the mountains, or if he just turns it off because now he knows where he's at and how to get home from there. But there is a call with Chad south of, just southeast of Salt Lake City in Utah before that burner phone goes silent. Completely off network. On October 3rd, so this is the day after the shooting, Lori and Chad's phones are pinging in the general vicinity of Lori's apartment, or they're pinging off of a tower that could cover the area of their apartment. And that's pretty much the end of direct. When she says the burner phone doesn't have any more data at all after that phone call in Utah. Got anything else on that?
That Alex's phone, October 2nd at 2:15, it was at the storage unit, and then at 2:13 we have the video of Chad and Lori dropping off the Jeep tire.
I'm skipping over these. I don't know how I'm skipping over these. I must be using like fast scroll or something.
It's okay. Do you have it? I mean, at least do you have the note? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. On October 2nd, 1:22 to 8:13 p.m., the burner phone tower ping. Okay, that's the Utah thing. And then on October 3rd at 2:15 p.m., Alex's main phone through Google data is shown at the storage unit at the time when the tire and the bench seat were removed.
Was it the third? I have the second. So that was the third? See, that was what was confusing me. Okay, so that was the third. Okay, because I Googled, it took like 14 hours. There's like 14 hours to get from Gilbert back up to Rexburg. But I had October 2nd. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. But I thought, because she had his phone. That's why it showed.
No, but he showed up there with her on the 3rd to take the bench seat and the tire back out.
Okay.
So that was him actually probably with his phone on the 3rd.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. One number makes a world of difference.
It can. It definitely can.
So then just finally, I had Lori receiving calls from Chad from 2:20 to 2:22. I'm guessing that was at October 3rd. I didn't quite, that was the last thing I had written down. So I don't know if that was.
Yeah.
I guess
I have from 2:20 to 2:22, Lori and Chad's phones were at Lori's apartment in Rexburg.
Okay.
So they pick up that bench and that tire and they head straight back down south to the townhouse. Mm-hmm. And then both of their phones are in that general area of the townhouse.
So Lori and Alex pick up, they go to the storage unit and they leave. It shows them at 2:13. I think they leave probably within 5 minutes. So then she's calling Chad immediately on the drive back. But it's only like a half mile, right? That's what Hermosillo said yesterday. Yeah, it's only
correct.
Like a half mile. Yeah. It just shows that those three were definitely talking. And then, of course, Melani, as we found out, is as much in this conspiracy as the rest of them,
We heard that multiple times today.
Yep.
Multiple times. And shockingly clear with clarity. Like Trina K didn't pull any punches with Melani today.
Agreed.
So then we get Lori's cross of Special Agent Nicholas Balance. The very first line cracks me up. She says, "Should I call you Special Agent Balance or Mr. Balance?" It's Special Agent Balance to you, ma'am. He didn't say to you, ma'am, but
right. Like, was that her flirting? I mean, was she? What do you think? Was she trying to use her wiles?
I couldn't see her clear enough to understand to interpret that. I don't know. I just thought his reaction to her was funny. It's Special Agent. Come on, Mr. Balance, Mr. Balance.
Yeah. How did the jury treat him or take him? Like, were they interested in what he was saying? Were they?
Oh,
engaged?
absolutely. They were on the. I wouldn't say they were on the edge of their seat, but they were very, very raptly paying attention to this, like almost through his entire testimony, direct and cross. And they were paying attention on cross too. There were times when they were on the edge of their seat, like when we saw the location data. I think juror number 5. Let me look at my notes real quick. And once again, juror 9 is occasionally glancing into the gallery, like he's mostly paying attention. He paid more attention today than he ever has in any day of the trial so far. Like 100% he was paying attention. Well, 98%, because occasionally he was looking up into the gallery, made eye contact with me a couple times again today. I don't know what's up with that. But also looking over into the family, off to his left into the family seats. And for longer than he made eye contact with me, he was looking over.
Who was there? Who was there in the gallery?
Kay was there. Brandon was there. Colby didn't show up. And, a bunch of other miscellaneous family that I don't recognize. But Megan Connor showed up this afternoon.
Oh, nice. Did you have a chance to talk to her?
I did. And we're going to work on a collaboration of some kind. She's going to be broadcasting early tomorrow. So I may swing by and do a little impromptu live over on her channel.
Oh, cool. Nice. How early would that be, just so we know?
I don't know. I will be at court early, so we get Trace a seat in court, and so I get my seat in the media, because I don't know if we're expecting 20 media people to show up. I don't want to be 21st. If that's the case, I don't even want to be 10th. I want to be like 3rd or 4th. So we're going to go early, but probably the thing, if I do a collab with Megan, it's probably going to be mid-morning-ish, I would guess. And that's our time. So that's like noonish your time.
Right. Okay. It's like an hour or so before court actually starts.
Right.
Okay. All right. Good. Just so I know.
Or right when court starts, maybe.
Okay.
No, I'll be there for court. I will be there at 10 o'clock. All right. Well, you know what? Jury deliberations start at 10 o'clock. There is I don't think there's any court proceedings unless there are like motions to review or something. You know what I mean? Don't they just say, okay, jury deliberations start at 10 and, the clock starts ticking again at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We have 15 minutes and we're 15 minutes into deliberations right now. It starts up again at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Let's hope they at least got a 4-person and said, all right, let's go home, think about it, and come back fresh.
Yep. Juror number 3 was dismissed. We'll talk about that later, because I need to look at my juror notes about who juror number 3 was, and I don't have them handy. They may be in my bag.
That was not today. That was the gentleman from...
No, juror number 10 was excused on day 1, but today the 3 alternates were excused.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, they're not really excused per se, right? They're in case
they're not going to attend deliberations,
right?
But they are under the admonishment not to talk about or research the case because they may be called back to finish deliberations if one of the main ones can't go through it all. Here we go.
Yeah.
Juror number. All right, we'll get to this later. I've got my juror notes out on the 3 that were selected as alternate jurors this afternoon, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
We'll keep going with Nick Balance and Lori's Cross of Nick Balance, FBI Special Agent Nick Balance with the CAS team. I have the jurors are leaning forward, watching Lori and Nick intently.
Okay. Was there some energy between the two of them?
There might be, that actually may be the case. I'm too far away to detect that, if there is any energy between them. But he was over accommodating of some of her questions for sure. Like, she would ask the most ridiculous questions, like, tell me how that works in meters. And I'm like, I would have been Judge Bresky on the witness stand at that point, just going. But he didn't. Nick Balance didn't do that with her. He was super patient with her.
Yeah.
She wants to know if the location data were on, all 3 location datas were on, which one would your device use? So you have cellular location data and you have Google location data, and I'm not sure what the third one would be. I don't know. And then she wants to know who provided the information from Google. In other words, the data, the cell phone data, who provided that. It was the investigative team in Rexburg that provided him that data. She wants to know how it was transferred to him. He says because of the large size of the file in this case, it was probably some kind of a transfer portal. He didn't say portal. He said app or something like that. I don't know. Platform. He said platform, not portal. So she says, you don't have any way to know if it was altered before it got to you, correct? He says correct.
Yeah.
I thought that was a decent point that she made.
She does that often with these experts in the law enforcement. I've noticed that's like her main defense, if you will.
Right. Her main angle at trying to land a point of some kind.
Yep.
Introduce reasonable doubt.
Yep. But I also thought you'll get to it. I'm guessing his response.
His response to what?
Basically, can you trust Google and Verizon that they gave you the information? I think that may have come.
Oh, yeah. He says yes. I look for that Google certification like right away when I get the data.
Yeah, certification of authenticity and
yes, right.
Certificate of authenticity. Yeah, but
right.
Yeah. I mean, I get where she's going.
Yeah,
I get where she's going, and do you think she gets that from her dad? Do you think?
Oh yeah, everybody says that. Yeah. Everybody says that's the way the Barry is. He tries to be his own attorney, and it's failed him in the past in a major way.
Yep. Question everything. Trust no one.
Yep.
Question everything. Yep.
So then she gets into the fact that he, the analyses that he comes up with are to place a device and not a person. So she's like, so I can give track phone to my kid and they can go to amusement park and ride around the rides. And it could look like I'm the one that's, at the amusement park riding the rides. And he's like, yeah, that's correct. I track devices. I don't track people.
Do you think that was a dig at Tylee at all?
You mean like, is she insinuating that Alex gave that track phone to Tylee to go?
Yeah.
To drive down to Phoenix and drive all the way back all by herself in like a 36 hour period. If I were in the jury, I wouldn't. I mean, that's not an amusement park trip. I mean,
right.
if that burner phone was pinging at an amusement park, I would be like, okay, that's a legitimate like theory that you give this other phone. And I would say it's not a burner phone, it's another phone. I already told you that. I would have made that point like back in the beginning when Trina K started calling it a burner phone. But she didn't get challenged on it, so she continued.
Right.
Yeah, well, it doesn't track. It doesn't track logically in this case.
Right. I just got the sense, and some people in our chat were just like, why go down that? Why even suggest that? Oh, just because it can track the phone, it can't track the person. So maybe some irresponsible teenager took my phone and they did this. So that's kind of where I thought she might be going, of just throwing. Well, she's throwing Melani under the bus, so why not Tylee too?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So when was the last time the track phone pinged south of Salt Lake City? So now she asked him about the tower sectors, and this is when she really gets into some confusion about cell tower location data and Google location data. And she has to ask him several times, several different ways, and he tries to explain it to her so she'll understand. So she brings up the page of Alex's phones at the apartments, and she says, so you couldn't tell the exact location from this? He says, no. Says, so this is his regular phone with a geolocation. He says the cell tower location data, I think the final conclusion of all that back and forth between them, which was confusing to people trying to listen and figure out what she was trying to ask. The cell tower location data is not as accurate as Google location data pings. I think that's probably something that she still didn't get after he said it. But he told her the cell tower location data is not as accurate as Google location data pings. And I think this is important, not just for this case, but it comes up in cases all the time. It came up in the Karen Reed case. It's going to come up in Brian Koberger case. I mean, cases all over the place, major cases focus on geolocation, Google location data, cell tower location data. I mean, and I think Nick Balance did an amazing job of explaining it all. Like, he laid it out there so anybody could understand it. Except
I agree.
Lori.
Except Lori, yeah. Almost every trial we see cell data tracking, that and DNA. It seems those two are very common. And I do have to say that the expert in Monica Cementili, I thought, did a really good job too. But Nick absolutely did a great job. I wish we could have seen his demonstratives, his report. Were you able to see it? Because I know you said you have.
You didn't see his report?
Nope, they didn't show his report. I don't
what?
Think. Yeah, I don't remember seeing.
Oh my gosh, it was an amazing report.
Oh yeah, chat. Did they show? I would have definitely taken screenshots, unless I'm.
Maybe they couldn't because they didn't have a way to do it with a camera where the camera was positioned in the viewing room, because the camera is back behind us to the right in the viewing room. And in the past, what they've done is they've showed the screen that was over the witness. Yeah. So to do that in Nick Balance's case, they can't, because they would have to show him to show that screen behind him, and they couldn't figure out any other screen to show. Ooh. Yeah. I'm gonna have to talk to Court TV about it. Well, it's too late now in this trial, but maybe if they had positioned the camera a little bit differently, like off to the left or off to the right, they could have picked up one of the other screens to show in that.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it. Well, they kept going. They didn't show him, obviously, so they go from Judge Boreski. They kind of showed Trina a little bit. They'd show Lori, but they never. I think most people are saying no, they didn't. They didn't show it. They showed a little bit of Lori's screen, or maybe they showed just a second or two of his report. But I was kind of bummed because I really wanted to see that.
Yeah. No, it was an amazing report. Like, bingo.
Bummer.
Like,
Bummer.
Yeah.
All right, so.
And you notice whenever Lori asked him a question on direct about something specific at that report, he's like, "Oh, you must be talking about page 6. Oh, you must be talking about page 9. Oh, you must be talking about page 18." Like he knows that report like inside and out. It was like I was super impressed with that. Like
how many
How
many pages were there?
I'm thinking like 20-ish.
Okay.
20 to 24 maybe.
Right.
Because the opening pages were about, general cell tower information, and then there was a legend about, okay, the following maps are going to show this, and then they start getting into maps, and there are several maps in it. It might have been under 20. It might have been like 15, 16.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he knew it backward and forward. Like he must have been sitting on that plane flight, just like, okay, this is page 6, this is page 7, this is page 8. All right, go back through it. This is page 6. I mean, he knew it backwards and forwards, which was very impressive.
I can see that, especially he put it together. He put the time, the blood, sweat, and tears into it. I could see that, especially it's only 20 pages. I could see him knowing it pretty solid.
Yes. Yeah, he did. And he knew it better than almost any expert that I've ever seen testify about a report that they prepared, because they're always like, well, can you show me to refresh my memory? And then they're like, okay, what page is it on? Type of thing. He's like, no, it's on. He was telling her it's on, but you're talking about page 6 of the report. You're talking about page 12 of the report.
He seemed probably one of the more solid witnesses I've heard. I didn't have a chance to see him because I didn't show him, but his responses were solid. And how did he come across to you live? Did he come across as confident? He wasn't really hemming and hawing. Every answer was
absolutely solid, totally solid. And Heather Rose asked here, so the jury could clearly understand the phone data from his report. I would have to say that they would have to be studiously not paying attention to not understand the phone data from his report. I mean, it was laid out point A to point B, literally point A to point B to point C to point D, and point D to point B to point C to point A.
There's, like I said earlier, almost every trial has cell phone data, and sometimes it's just like I just want to bounce my head off the table because it's just so boring and dry. But he was solid.
They did not. They did not get bored during his testimony at all. Like they heard FBI special agent when he was first introduced, and they were on the edge of their seat and they were paying attention like the entire time, like direct and cross and redirect. They were paying attention.
And they did not know that the camera was not going to be on him. That was before they came in.
Correct.
So they didn't know that either. Yeah.
Yes.
That's so weird because it's like you have how many people? Like 50 people maybe in the courtroom total, gallery, jury.
Well, there's 75 in the gallery plus the 16 in the jury box.
Right. So close to like 90 plus the judge and all the staff and everything. So you have like 90 people that clearly are seeing this guy, but yet he doesn't want to be shown, which I understand. I mean, I get that, but because you never know who's watching and he could be doxxed.
Because 90 to 100 is less than 4 million.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. That is true. And then there's all the rewatch people and all that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yep. And the news will blast it, all that stuff. Yeah. So
then she's showing individual pages from his report. She's putting them on the overhead projector. Tower pings of Alex's phone at the apartments. Exact location, no. The accuracy of towers versus Google. Could you track someone's specific location inside Walmart with Google location data? It depends on the margin of error. But yeah, I mean, he said within a certain degree of certainty or uncertainty, I could track somebody inside a Walmart.
Yeah. He said a particular aisle is a stretch, but it depends on the records from Google and the device. So that we talked about that earlier. If you have 20 apps and 19 of them are all location tracking, then and you get your hands on that phone. Yeah, you probably could come pretty close to it. You know? That's a lot of data saying you were here at this day and this time.
Right.
So, yep.
And then she asked him about the accuracy of the Verizon cell tower location data. And he says it depends on the density of the towers. Like in dense urban areas like Phoenix, you're going to have a whole bunch of towers. So you're going to be able to narrow that location down a lot better. Because it's going to ping off of multiple towers. Whereas if you're out in the country and in urban or in rural areas, it's going to ping off of fewer towers, and you may ping off of 0 to 1 towers, if you're far enough out in there. And you, if you're in between 2 towers, 1 tower will drop you when you pick up the next tower up the line. So he said like halfway in between the towers, you'll switch between the towers.
Yep.
And then she said, so the phone has to be on, and the app opted, the geolocation opted into, or location sharing it opted into, to get a Google location record. Oh no, she says, can you explain it to me? And he says the phone has to be on and the app has to be opted into for location sharing to get a Google location record. And she still doesn't understand. So he says, let me share an analogy with you. You see your neighbor. Am I boring you, Dizzy? Am I boring you, Dizzy?
Oh, no, Dizzy.
We're almost done with this. We're almost done.
We're trying to make it as exciting as possible.
We are. But I liked his analogy because he understood that she wasn't understanding. And he's like, well, let me explain it this way. Your neighbor has a red car in their driveway. You go out and see it at a certain time, say 9:30. And then you go back in your house and you come out at another time, say 10 o'clock, and you see it there. And then you go back in your house and you come out at another time, say 11 o'clock, and you see it. You can't make the determination that the red car was in the driveway between 9:30 in the morning, or 9:30 and 11 o'clock. All you can say is that it was in the driveway at a specific time, in the driveway at another specific time, in the driveway at another specific time. So that was a good analogy. I thought he went out of his way to help her kind of figure it out. And I think that's maybe when she went, oh, okay. Yeah, I get it now. Maybe she didn't. Then we get to redirect. Alex's main phone was the one that was using the Google location data, and the burner phone was using the Verizon cell tower pings. And the burner phone and Lori's phone using the cell tower location data, and a couple of other questions that didn't seem all that important to me. Did you see anything noteworthy in redirect after that?
I have 3 lines of notes, and the last 2 are mapping was using, then blank, and then consistent with, and then blank. So clearly my brain just like shorted out. I don't know. Yeah, I think it was, yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Okay.
So no. I love it. Mapping was using consistent with. My brain was like, yep, nope, I'm done.
Imagine me in court with my laptop, and my laptop system now is a lot better than the old system that I had. But I'm trying to pay attention to the jury. I'm trying to pay attention to the court proceedings. I'm trying to pay attention to what the witnesses is saying and the case that whoever is up is laying out, and I get a lot of that. Yeah, the what Nick Ballin said was.
I feel your pain. I feel your pain. We're dual streaming, and yeah, it's crazy. So it was one of those days for a lot of people. But yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, because I needed that. I needed that.
Okay, so then the jury is dismissed for lunch, and we have a little bit of back and forth after the jury is dismissed. Lori wants a Rule 20, which is probable cause type of hearing for if the state has proven their case or not to this point. She said she wants it after lunch. And they start reviewing jury instructions, and I take off because they're also going to, that's all boring. I watched like a minute of it, and then I'm like out of here. Then we get back from lunch, and they have a very brief Rule 20 argument. She makes an argument. Trina Kay has her say about it, and she says, we have plenty of evidence that a reasonable juror would convict her of this crime. And judge says, I agree. So the Rule 20 hearing goes nowhere. Then Lori enters the Tammy Lachik evidence, Tammy Lachik letter into evidence for appellate purposes. Apparently, Tammy Lachik, who is the one who actually collected the evidence in Rexburg, could not testify here for some reason, and the letter specifies what that reason is. The prosecution filed a motion to file that letter under seal. The judge granted that, so we're never going to be able to see that. So I imagine it has to do with some type of medical reasons or psychological reasons. But we know that in last winter, she was involved in some type of an incident at a hotel where she was inebriated. It wasn't like a drunk driving thing, but it was like there was a police report filed, at that hotel involving her. And that's about all we know.
Wow. So she was, Lori was going to call her.
She was on the state's witness list, and then the state backed off of calling her. And Lori's like, "Oh, whoa, what'd you do that for?" And then her private investigator, or her investigator, probably is the one that found out that information about that incident last December. And
interesting. Okay.
Which is 5 years after the initial investigation and taking of the evidence, so it has nothing to do with nothing.
No. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
All right. So then we had that. And then we see she's not going to present. The jury comes back in and the defense rests, which means she's not presenting any evidence or any witnesses. And then they read the jury instructions, and then they get into closing arguments. So in its entirety, the closing arguments last an hour. So I think we should get into it, and then we should have Dizzy be prepared to pause it just a few times in the middle of it, because I have some thoughts about things that are said, like I usually have.
Was she staring down the jury at this point?
No. Oh, no.
Who would want to kill you? That is a question that Officer Mary Ann Robb asked Brandon when she first arrived. That's a question that Detective Hiller asked Brandon when he spoke with him. Brandon Boudreaux gave the exact same answer to both of these officers. He gave them two names: Lori Vallow, the woman seated over here, and Alexander Cox. He told them that he believed his shooting had something to do with an incident that occurred in Chandler in July of 2019, a couple months before this. He pointed them to that. He told them that Lori Vallow had lived in Texas and that the Jeep used in the shooting was from Texas. And then he told them what happened, how he had come home that morning. This Jeep was parked unusually close to his driveway, waiting. That he noticed there was no tire on the back, that he noticed that Texas license plate, that it was a two-door Wrangler, and then he noticed that window go up. He saw the rifle come out. He saw what he believed was a silencer at the end, and then he heard and saw that bullet that hit the frame of his car, shattering the window right near his ear, causing that loud bang that he heard.
No,
when
she
that
didn't clap her
struck
hands
near
this
his
time.
head, mere inches away from him. Brandon drove off and called 911, actually panting in panic from what he had just experienced. This defendant's co-conspirator also drove off to try to escape, immediately calling this defendant's soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell, and Googling a way to get back to Idaho Falls, sort of through back roads. The names that Brandon Boudreaux gave the police were correct, but Brandon had no idea of the amount of planning that had gone on leading up to this October 2nd shooting. As you've seen and heard in this trial, much of this conspiracy, this planning, this premeditation occurred in Idaho. So what I'd like to do is go through the evidence. discuss it all together in a timeline that might make a little more sense than the presentation during trial, and show you how it all fits together. Show you how all of this evidence points to one conclusion, that this defendant was involved in that conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Next, I'd like to talk to you about the jury instructions, go through some of them specifically, and then talk to you how this evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant is guilty. And finally, I want to talk to you about, I'll call them so-called defenses. Maybe that there was no shooting at all, perhaps Melani did it, or maybe just that this defendant wasn't involved. And we'll discuss those options. So let's start. With a timeline that you heard from the beginning of this trial starts around June 25th, when Brandon Boudreaux learns that this defendant has been feeding lies to his then wife, Melani. She has been telling Melani things like Brandon hacked into her computer, that Brandon was gay, that Brandon was trying to take her temple recommend away. Brandon told you that he had heard these things from Charles too, this defendant's husband at the time, who had told Brandon that his wife, Lori Vallow, was telling Brandon's wife lies. What did we learn from this? Brandon, in fact, texted Lori about this. He told her, why are you spreading these lies about me? Why are you destroying my marriage? And as you learned, she didn't respond. Then you heard about that July 11th, 2019 incident in Chandler, Arizona. The one that Brandon, both to Officer Rob and to Detective Pillar, said, this has to do with this incident. What you learned from Detective Duncan, who came here, was that on July 11th, there was an incident. Lori Vallow was there. It was at her house, and Alex Cox was there. In her garage was that 2018 Jeep Wrangler with the Texas plates LWD 0.
Do you remember Detective Duncan stating that Lori and Alex were there at that house? I don't remember that on Detective Duncan's testimony that he stated that they were there. No. I remember the pictures were taken of the cars and the Jeep and the truck that were there, but I do not remember him stating that Alex and Lori were also there at that incident.
No, I don't remember that either.
I'm going to have to go back and look at his testimony.
Yeah.
I think I don't know that that's a true statement by Trina K, but that's okay. Nobody objected to it. Okay. Thank you, Dizzy. We can carry on.
0997, and you learn that Alex Cox has his own vehicle. He doesn't need to borrow his sister's. He can drive his truck anywhere he wants. As Brandon's divorce is progressing, and he's seeking a mediator and working through that, this defendant and her brother moved to Rexburg, Idaho. You were provided with various documents from search warrants, both through Detective Duncan and Lieutenant Hermosillo, through Lollytime iCloud accounts for this defendant, showing that she had emailed Blue Skies, that she rented an apartment up there. We see that she was searching for areas up there. We also saw that her brother, Alex Cox, moved right up there with her. Now, you heard from Brandon that part of their divorce, Melani moved into her own residence, and they put their community home up for sale. And on September 13th, when their home had sold, but it was still pending, he rented that house at 3875 East Phelps Street. He told just a handful of people that address. Melani Boudreaux asked for it on September 17th, and he provided it to her. Why wouldn't he? The only other people who knew that address were his two neighbors and a couple of friends, 5 people. But the only one that knew this defendant and Alex Cox, the woman that she referred to as her mom, that was her mom figure, this defendant, Lori Vallow, is the only one that would have known that address so that Alex could go there later. We know that on September 25th, Brandon moved into that residence. And he moved in early because his then soon-to-be ex-wife was leaving out of town. We know in the same time period, Melani knows the address. The plan is already starting. Alex is searching for places to shoot. He is also looking for tint shops, not a tint shop for his Ford F-150, because if you lay in the back of the truck, of course all the neighbors can see you. He is going to borrow this defendant, his sister's Jeep, Melani Boudreaux's mom. And so he finds a place that will tint that Jeep as dark as possible so that even in the daylight, no one can see into the back, so he can lie in wait. Oh. All right. We saw that not only does Alex search for and get to Dan's windows, and this is important. You may say, well, who cares? Of course we know that. We heard from Dan Moss. But when you start thinking about the other searches to these Gmail accounts and you want to authenticate them, you know that these are legit. Why? Because here's Alex searching how to get to Dan's, and then what does he do? He shows up there with this defendant's Jeep so that it can be tinted. What do we know? We know again from Dan that they spent $200. They're in Idaho. This Jeep is already tinted. Why would you ever put additional tint on that Jeep? It's not even your primary car. We see Lori Vallow driving her little Nissan Rogue all over the place because you need a vehicle that you can hide in the back of and that you can shoot out that back window from. The burner phone. We heard this morning from Nick Balance, and he talked to you about both the records that you have seen that were admitted, as well as now the Google location data and cell phone analysis. What do we know? That on September 25th, when that burner phone was purchased at that Walmart, Alex Cox's phone is there, and Lori Vallow's phone is using a cell tower in that area. They drive out of town to a different Walmart to go buy this phone. Lori Vallow doesn't live in Idaho Falls. She lives in Rexburg, but her phone is in Idaho Falls talking with Melani Boudreaux. Mm-hmm. You know, the next day, Alex Cox activates that burner phone. That burner phone is only going to be used for one trip. The trip to Gilbert, Arizona and back. This is what you learned from Nick Balance this morning. That again, Alex Cox's phone tied to that Google account is showing right there in the Walmart. This defendant's phone is also in Idaho Falls, utilizing a tower at that Walmart. Then we know on the 26th, when we're activating this phone, Melani Boudreaux flies up here to be with the defendant. We know at this time, Brandon Boudreaux has the kids, and we know that they have an agreement. Brandon will keep them Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. Wednesday, October 2nd, he will hand them back to her, and they will stay with her. So when he's shot and killed, it won't matter because she'll have the kids. It'll be fine. They know, because it's the plan, that their youngest gets dropped off every morning. Brandon will pull up to the park and let her know he's there. And so all of this information is known. Now, how do we know it's known? We know by the timing. And so we'll go through that. But remember, this is when Melani's coming up and spending 3 days with this defendant. She has to be back Monday. Why? Because she's going to take the kids like she always does. Again, we have Alex Cox preparing for this shooting. We know he's not only practicing, but he's trying to figure out trajectory. What do we know? That this is a movie.
Dizzy, pause for just a second.
Alex Cox is going to have to try to fire out the back of a Jeep.
This is just real quick. Mm-hmm. This is Trina Kay's back and forth rocking motion that she did in her opening too. That cracks me up. Like it's her default public speaking mannerism. That she steps back and she steps forward and she steps back and she steps forward, and she'll step forward for a while, but then she defaults back to the stepping forward and stepping back. And it caused audio problems in the opening, but I don't hear the audio problems, and I didn't hear them in court today either. Mm-hmm. She seemed just fine in court today. Okay, that's it. Just quick note.
At a moving car. And ladies and gentlemen, he came pretty close to being successful at that. We know that Melani flies back to Arizona. And then
back and forth.
We have the beginning of the trip. And the beginning of this defendant starting the giant alibi defense that she does.
She's driving the cameraman nuts.
Why? Yeah.
Has anyone ever take someone's cell phone and carry it around with them? Why would you take someone's cell phone and do that? Why would you make phone calls between each other other than to ensure that it looks like Alex Cox is still in Idaho? They think he has a burner phone. No one will even know. Great idea, other than we know he hooked it up to his Google account. So we know that the afternoon of the 30th, Alex takes his phone over to his sister's apartment, and it stays there or with this defendant until he returns on the 3rd.
Back and forth.
We know that at about 5:15, Lori Vallow searches how to remove the back seat of the Jeep. Alex Cox still is there, and now she is helping him get ready for his trip. She has his phone, she's giving him her Jeep, and she is helping him make it more comfortable so he can lie in wait in the back. They had to remove the tire, and they had to remove that back seat. We know that sometime that evening, Alex Cox leaves Idaho and moves towards Gilbert. We heard from Detective Pillar that there was an LPR reading for that Texas license plate LWD 0997 at around 8:10 outside of Rexburg, Idaho. We know from the balance that there is no phone activity until we see the phone arrive in Arizona. We also know that the Jeep is in Arizona. So we have the burner phone and the Jeep, and Alex Cox is Googling in Arizona. Holbrook, we see that LPR reader showing the Jeep with no tire on the back, so they can open that rear window, exactly as Brandon explained. This defendant's Jeep. What do we know is that, again, the burner phone is calling one person, this defendant's husband, Chad Daybell. We see that Alex Cox is in Arizona with other physical evidence. What is that? It's that receipt from Los Favoritos that was recovered inside the Jeep in Idaho.
Los Favoritos.
So we know the Jeep is down here. As much as the defendant
You got to
wants
go
tell
there
you
still.
about colors or
I
whatever else, her Jeep was here in Mesa on October 1st of 2019.
If we get a
We can
verdict
just stop
tomorrow, that's
pretending that
Friday.
didn't happen. We
Cool.
know as well, when we look at those Google records, and we're trying to authenticate them, that the Los Favoritos was on Power Road in Mesa. And after having lunch, Alex Cox Googled another location on Power Road. Now, this defendant, in aiding this conspiracy and helping her brother, starts by renting that storage unit.
Back and forth and back
She rents
and
that
forth.
on October 1st. She also still is in possession of her brother's phone. So this way it looks like Alex Cox is going with her to the storage unit. She's providing that alibi because they don't think that the burner phone has hooked into this Google account. They don't know about the LPR readers. They don't think about the receipt.
Poor
So,
camera guy.
Lori Vallow provides his alibi and she brings the phone with her.
Yeah,
And we
right.
know that
Like
Alex
watching
Cox's
tennis.
phone is
Yeah.
with this defendant as she's renting a storage unit. Even though we know from the video, he's not there. She's alone. When you watch these videos, if you want to, they're obviously admitted, you will see one person get in and out of that car and one person go into the storage unit. That one person is this defendant, Lori Vallow. So even though Alex Cox's phone is here, that's just a ruse. That's her aiding, that's her conspiring, that's her trying to cover up this murder for her brother, who is the shooter. What we know as well is by October 1st, we know the Jeep and Alex Cox are here in Arizona. And we know that that evening of October 1st, he Googles that address. The address that only 5 people knew. The address that this defendant's niece, the person she said she's like a mom for, that's where her ex-husband or soon-to-be ex-husband is living. He Googles 3875 East Phelps Street, even with the zip code into it. And then he gets directions there, getting prepared, knowing where he needs to go the next morning. Why? Because again, Melani and Brandon have a very set schedule, and they know that Brandon's going to drop off the kids and then meet Melani to pass off their youngest, and Alex will be waiting at home. We know the next morning, Alex Cox Googles again the address for Brandon's home. We know that that morning, Alex Cox's burner phone is utilizing towers near this defendant's niece, Brandon Boudreaux's soon-to-be ex-wife's home, Melani Boudreaux. And we know that the calls that he is having are with this defendant's husband, Chad Daybell. And we know that by 7:22, Alex is moving towards Brandon's home. He knows that Brandon is going to be leaving to take the kids to school because Melani knows the schedule, and he will be waiting when the kids are dropped off. The morning of October 2nd, Brandon has a very normal schedule. He's got to get his kids to school. He leaves around 7:25. He drops off his first kids at school, and then he meets with Melani and drops off their youngest. Melani does not know that Brandon is going to work out. Normally, he'd go home. Alex would be waiting there. But instead, he went to the gym. Now, again, we've heard a lot of questioning of whether or not a Jeep existed there or not, but we all know that it's this defendant's Jeep. But we also know that a neighbor across the street saw the Jeep there, and not only saw it, but knew something was wrong. He told you that it was parked on the wrong side of the road, nose to nose with that white van, that it was running, that it had really dark tint. And in fact, he told you he was so thinking it was out of place that he actually looked in his rearview mirror to try to just see what the license plate was, and he noted it was a Texas license plate. He told you it was just a dark Jeep, whatever color that is.
Why was Captain Jack getting emotional?
This time period again, this defendant's burner, or this defendant's co-conspirator's burner
we'll talk about that in a minute.
Still calling one person, and that is Chad Daybell, this defendant's husband.
Actually, no, this is a good spot to pause.
We know that this defendant has been carrying around
take a second
Alex
to talk
Cox's
about it.
phone. The phone subscribed to him. The one that if you looked at, you'd be like, oh, there's where Alex Cox is. Look at that Wi-Fi. She's been carrying it around, and now she knows if at 7:40 there's going to be a handoff of the kids, you need to make the alibi, 8 o'clock. And so at 8:02 Arizona time, she has Alex Cox's phone call her phone, and there's a fake 24-minute call. Look, Alex couldn't have done that. He's up here in Idaho with me. Of course, Brandon was at the gym, so it's a little early. But still, it's an alibi. You can't have run down to Arizona in those next 40 or so minutes. So we know, of course, that while that fake call is going on, the Idaho Falls burner phone is in Gilbert, utilizing cell towers that are in the area of 3875 East Phelps, and Lori Vallow's Jeep is parked right outside of Brandon's house, waiting for him to return home. We know that 20 minutes before Alex Cox shoots at Brandon, Lori Vallow's phone gets a call from Melani Boudreaux. Here they are, still talking and conspiring, trying to figure out what's going on. Where is Brandon? Brandon returned home about 9:13. Alex Cox has been waiting there now for almost 2 hours. He returns home and sees that Jeep. Just like Robert Abitamarco, he notices it being parked really close to his driveway, and it stands out to him. And of course, then he sees that window open and that barrel come out, and this gun shoot at him and almost hit him. We know from Lynette Mendoza, who had a Ring camera, that just a few seconds before that shooting, her Ring camera had shown a black car, and you just see a bleep of it in the beginning as it kind of jumps, go by that corner. And then a few seconds later, you hear that loud bang. When you look at the time on that Ring camera that you have admitted, it matches up with that 911 call with when Brandon is calling in to say he's just been shot at.
Okay, Dizzy,
Like Brandon
pause.
said, loud. You've heard a lot about the color of this Jeep.
Okay, so if you remember, the first time she played this video, when she was direct examining one of the detectives, I happened to be looking down when that gunshot went up the first time, and I happened to be looking down when the gunshot went up the second time when she replayed it. Guess what I wasn't doing this time around?
Looking down.
I was not looking down. I was staring intently at the jury, and 3 of them, at least, maybe 4, jumped visibly when this gunshot rang out. It was that loud in the courtroom. And there were probably another 3 people in the gallery in front of me that I also noticed jump, including the woman sitting directly in front of me. She jumped, was totally startled by this. So it is a startling noise. It is loud and it is impactful. And I was paying attention for you all this time. I was.
Thank you,
didn't
Joe.
jump. I didn't jump because I was expecting it.
You don't think the jury knew it was coming, or
they did, because they heard it before. They knew
Right.
it was coming, and at least 3 of them, maybe 4, still jumped. And juror number 8 is a young little petite girl with glasses and straight hair, and she was one of the ones that jumped the most, that I noticed the most. And she knew it was coming, and she jumped anyway. She was startled anyway. Like it's almost like a Jack in the Box. Like if you've ever seen the movie Elf, and he goes do 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 do. Okay, that one works. Do 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 do. Whoa! I mean, it gets you. You know it's coming, but it still startles you, and it did. Yeah.
Well, thank you for not looking down and paying attention this time.
Yes, I was prepared this time.
Nice.
The other thing we want to talk about is Captain Jack and his emotionality. Trace on the case noticed this. I did not notice this, but at one point in time, Trina is talking about the exchange of kids between Brandon and Melani, and in their, dissolving marriage. They have to have this custody arrangement figured out. They have to meet at the park near Melani's house to drop off his little girl, so Melani can take her home with her. And Trey said she noticed that he looked like he was maybe almost crying a little bit, like he was wiping his eyes and going like this. And so I looked up my notes from juror number 9, my bio notes. He's been in printing business for about 3 months. And I have marked down for his marital status in M. And I'm not sure if I know that means definitely not married now. I don't know if that means never married, but he's not married now. And I'm pretty sure I lean that direction. He's not married now, but he also has 1 child, 13. And I'm pretty sure I remember that's a daughter that's 13 years old. So he probably has had some struggles with the mother of his 13-year-old, whether it's a daughter or a son. He's probably had his own, traumatic experiences with dealing with those custody issues with the mother of his child. So he got, Trey said he got emotional today, and I believe it 100%.
Gotcha. Good one. Good observations.
Even when we look at photos of the exact same Jeep here, they all look a little different. You have the DEA one that looks almost silver or brown. I don't know. You have an upper one from Chandler that looks a different gray with a dark gray. And then you have the one from Dan Moss that looks more greeny colored. What do we all know? They all have the same license plate on them. They're all this defendant's Jeep. So when we're talking about color, that's just everyone's perspective. What do we know in actuality? That Brandon's Tesla was shot by a large round, that it hit the corner of that glass that went up into the frame of his vehicle, that it left a divot in the glass, and that somehow the police, in trying to search a giant block radius, were not able to recover those pieces of the projectile. We only have a few fragments of it. But everyone who has worked these scenes knows that's a bullet hole, and those were projectile fragments, and that was a gun that Brandon saw, and that's a shot that he heard. Immediately after hitting Brandon, Alex Cox takes off and is searching for directions out of there. And you saw those, and you saw a map as he went east, and those matched with the cell phone and cell tower records that Nick Balance told you about. Brandon is on the phone with 911. Alex Cox is fleeing because he knows Brandon's alive. We know that the other part is that while this is going on, while Alex is searching for his way home and has been talking to Chad Daybell, knowing now that Brandon's alive, what do? They go hide the tire and hide the seat. So the timing of those videos when Chad Daybell, person who is talking to Alex Cox, and this defendant go to the storage unit is as Alex Cox is calling him and telling him whatever as he's fleeing to go home. So we know that they arrive there, and you can watch these. By they, I mean Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. And we know that they bring in a tire and what looks like a seat. You can actually see Chad rolling the tire in. And again, why is this important? This is this defendant who has helped take the tire and seat out of her Jeep to make it available for her brother to take his guns down to Arizona to shoot at her niece's soon-to-be ex-husband. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about this conspiracy. As time goes on after the shooting, we know that, again, that burner phone and that Jeep are returning back to Idaho. In fact, Alex Googles all the way to Idaho Falls Airport. He knows how to get home from there. While he's doing that, again, we're having the storage unit. What do we know as the Jeep is coming back? It's back in Idaho and around Rexburg around the time of 3:54 and 4:28 when LPR readers note the Jeep back up there. What do both this defendant and Alex Cox do? They're both searching, trying to get the news. Was Brandon shot? Did he die? Did he live? What happened? Did they have leads?
She can't stand still.
Yeah. She kind of gave, what did this defendant do? She kind of gave a chuckle. Or like a,
and this idea that somehow it's
what
not
did
this
this
defendant's Jeep, that
bozo
she wasn't
do?
involved in this. We know that there was gunshot residue, characteristic particles that are unique to just gunshot residue located in the back of this Jeep, not on the seat or the floor, but on the windows. Why? Because when a gun is shot inside of a car, that dust goes everywhere. And that's why they were able to collect that. What do we know?
That must have been loud in that Jeep for Alex, but I guess he had earplugs.
Alex Cox's DNA is on it.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the jury instructions. I want to go through a few of them in specifics and then talk to you about the charges. Burden of proof. The state has the burden of proof, as we should, and we always will. You're told that the burden of proof is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And you're told that proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. That there are very few things in this world that we know with absolute certainty. And in criminal cases, the law does not require proof that overcomes every doubt. If, based on your consideration of the evidence, you are firmly convinced that the defendant is guilty of the crime charged,
Dizzy, we can
you must find her
blue
guilty.
past some of this.
When we talk about reasonable doubt and that burden of proof, I want to start with what it isn't.
This
Proof
is
beyond all
standard
reasonable
jury
doubt is not proof
instructions.
beyond all doubt. It's not proof beyond all possible doubt. It's proof beyond any reasonable doubt. And I'll give an example. When Kyle Mueller was on the stand and he was questioned about gunshot residue, he was asked, for instance, if a bunch of hairspray could cause the GSR in the car. And he said, well, maybe like one of the particles, but not all three. So maybe if all they had found, possibly you could say that was a doubt. But is it a reasonable doubt that hairspray caused the GSR in the car? No.
Hold on, Dizzy, pause. Dizzy, pause. Dizzy, pause.
So let's talk about direct and circumstantial
Back up.
evidence. And that's because we
Dizzy.
have a mixture of both here.
Did she fall
So
asleep on me?
Direct evidence is
Dizzy,
evidence that a witness
Dizzy.
saw, heard, or otherwise sensed an event. What Brandon told you about that happened that day. What Robert Aboutomarco told you about. That's direct evidence.
Oh my gosh. Dizzy,
Circumstantial
where are
evidence is
you?
the proof of a fact or facts from which you may find another fact. And you're told the law makes
Nope. Thank you, Dizzy.
Yeah. If you're falling asleep, I can take the wheel. It's okay. We don't want to drive off the road. We got to stay between the ditches, but we need to go back like a minute to a minute and a half, because Trina K says something here, and I'll just preface it with this. She says, is it reasonable to say that hairspray created the GSR in the Jeep? And that's not for her to say. Is it beyond a reasonable doubt? That's for the jury to determine if that's beyond a reasonable doubt, if that's reasonable to assume that hairspray could have done it. That is not for her to make that determination in closing arguments. And
Right.
I looked at Judge Boreski when she said this, and he avoided all eye contact. He was like, it's okay, Dizzy. He avoided all eye contact. He was staring intently at one of his monitors. And I honestly think that he knows that it was not proper for her to say this. But if a pro per defendant doesn't object to it, then, I mean, who's to say that it can't be done? Right. So the hairspray thing was if I were representing myself, I would have objected to that for sure, because it's up to the jury to decide if that's beyond a reasonable doubt, or if it's beyond a reasonable doubt to say that hairspray could have caused it. That's not for the prosecutor to say.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
a reasonable doubt that hairspray caused the GSR in the car? No.
Bingo.
So let's talk about direct and circumstantial evidence. And that's because we have a mixture of both here. So direct evidence is evidence that a witness saw, heard, or otherwise sensed an event. What Brandon told you about that happened that day. What Robert Aboutomarco told you about. That's direct evidence. Circumstantial evidence is the proof of a fact or facts from which you may find another fact. And you're told the law makes no difference between direct and circumstantial evidence. So I'm going to give you an example here as well so that we can understand what you can do with circumstantial evidence and why it is so important. Assume you are seated on a beach and it's in a cove and you can see on each side, you lose sight of people. While you're sitting there, you're the only person on the beach. There's no footsteps there and you see a person come from your left, walk in front of you and go to your right. They go around a corner, you lose sight of them. A couple minutes later, someone comes in and says, hey, did you see anyone come by? And you say, yeah, they just went that way. That is direct evidence. You saw it. Now imagine you're on that same beach, same situation. Sand is smooth. You close your eyes for 5 minutes. When you open them, you see footsteps now on the beach. You can see the toes and the heel. So you can see the direction as it crossed again from your left to your right, but you don't see a person at all there.
We can bloop,
your eyes
we can bloop forward for probably
someone
like
comes up
5
and
minutes
says,
or so.
hey, has anyone gone by? And you go, yeah, I mean, in the last 5 minutes, someone went that way.
There we go.
And or knew that he or she would cause the death of another person, which when you are shooting at them with a rifle, that is what you are intending or knowing. And they acted with premeditation. Talk about premeditation and then we'll wrap it all together to discuss. So premeditation means that they intended to kill another person and that they formed an intent or knowledge and then reflected on it. Now in Arizona,
Jamie, what was your favorite
premeditation does
part?
not require some long drawn out plan.
What happened?
I don't know. Jamie said we blew past her favorite part, and I don't know what part that was, because it seemed to me like she was just talking basic legalese about the fundamental parts of, you know, oh gosh, all the things that I put, talked about burden of proof, reasonable doubt, direct and circumstantial evidence, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, which involves conspiracy, membership of conspiracy, first-degree murder, premeditation. Then she does tie them to Lori, and then she does review the defenses. So maybe there are some important parts in there that we missed.
The actions and statements of all of the alleged participants. So you're going to have to look at everything and look at what this defendant did to promote or assist that conspiracy. So first-degree murder. Again, I'm going to just note that conspiracy means the parties agreed to engage in that conduct, so it doesn't mean there has to be a death. They are conspiring to kill someone. So we know that someone shot at Brandon Boudreaux and came very close to causing his death. They have to intend or knew that he or she would cause the death of another person, which when you are shooting at them with a rifle, that is what you are intending or knowing. And they acted with premeditation. Talk about premeditation and then we'll wrap it all together to discuss. So premeditation means that they intended to kill another person and that they formed an intent or knowledge and then reflected on it. Now, in Arizona, premeditation does not require some long drawn out plan. Reflection can be very fast. But in this case, we have premeditation that is days and weeks before this. We're talking about September 23rd, 24th, 25th, all the way through up to October 2nd. So this premeditation is above and beyond what is required by the law. This defendant started helping when they went to buy that burner phone, when she loaned her Jeep to allow it to be tinted, when she Googled how to remove that rear seat and they took off the tire and she kept it with her. Then she rented a storage unit and put it in there. When she kept her brother's cell phone and kept it with her as she went around Idaho. And when she made that call between those two phones, right around the time of when the shooting was supposed to occur. That is the aiding and the promoting done by this defendant. That is her acts. That is the conspiracy. But again, you look at all of the evidence to see how does that fit in. It's not just someone holding someone's phone. If that were it, sure. We might wonder what's going on. But you can't look at these facts simple and separate. You have to look at the actions of everyone and see how that fits in with all the evidence in this case. This defendant didn't just go buy a phone at Walmart and that was that. This defendant didn't just rent a storage unit and put her own personal property in there. This defendant didn't just decide to loan her Jeep to her brother and then decide to take the rear tire off it and the interior seat out of it.
Yeah. Yep.
She did all of these things to aid and promote
the totality of the evidence.
Right. Family.
When we're talking about defenses in this case,
that's her fault because she keeps rocking back and forth.
Potential ones.
Camera could pull out a little bit and frame it better, but
there was no.
Is what
true.
It is.
That's true.
It's not even a first-degree murder because I believe there were some thoughts
This is
about.
pretty tight. That's a pretty tight shot.
Brandon's, the hole in his car was made by a tire iron or whatever other defenses there were. But what do we know? Yes, there's a shooting here. Brandon's car has a bullet hole in it. There are fragments from that bullet hole in there. There's damage to his glass consistent with that location of the bullet hole in his car. Brandon called 911 out of breath from the fear of having just been shot when that bullet hit the frame of his car right near his head and shattered that window next to him. The Ring camera and that gunshot that you heard. Robert Abitamarco putting the Jeep there is idling there. So is that a defense? No, there was a shooting. So what else? And we've heard something about Melani doing it. She had a financial motive. And I'm not here to tell you that Melani wasn't involved in this. I'm telling you that this defendant was also involved in this. When we talk about a conspiracy to commit murder, there can be multiple people involved in that conspiracy. There were multiple people involved in that conspiracy. Melani Boudreaux was the only one that had the address. So yes, she was involved. But was she?
Hold on.
No.
Whoa.
That's
helped
pretty
ensure
big.
that her brother could help Melani by killing off her soon-to-be ex-husband.
Back up about 30 seconds. We hear her say Melani Boudreaux Pulowski. I don't know. Does she say her last name or does she just say Melani?
She definitely does not say Pulowski. Maybe Melani Boudreaux. Well, let's hear it again.
Was definitely involved in this, but she was not alone. This is huge. Like if you're Melani, like you're kind of scared, but she's also thinking, do I need to hire an attorney and sue Trina K for slander? Because I mean, that's a pretty big statement.
Yep.
And it's very declarative and defined and determined.
Yep.
And are we going to see a press conference on Friday? If we get a verdict tomorrow, are we going to see a press conference on Friday about charges against Melani?
Right.
They're coming. You know they're coming because she is so straightforward with this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to get another Airbnb in about 9 months.
And she said yesterday, the active investigation, open investigation.
Yep.
So,
all right, Dizzy.
Yep.
She had a financial motive. And I'm not here to tell you that Melani wasn't involved in this. I'm telling you that this defendant was also involved in this. When we talk about a conspiracy to commit murder, there can be multiple people involved in that conspiracy. There were multiple people involved in that conspiracy. Melani Boudreaux is the only one that had the address.
Melani Boudreaux.
Yes, she was involved. But was she it? No. This defendant helped ensure that her brother could help Melani by killing off her soon-to-be ex-husband, by loaning him the Jeep, by helping make the Jeep available and accessible to fire out of, removing that rear tire, removing the seat, allowing him to put the dark tint on it, and taking it with him. And then providing that alibi over those days while he was gone to help cover up that he was the shooter. I think she also said maybe she's not responsible for what her brother has done. But we know she is responsible. She is a co-conspirator. She is assisting. She is promoting in this crime. We know from the 25th on, she is helping to get the phone, to get ready, to make the Jeep ready, to cover up for her brother, to hide those extra parts, to Google how to even get the Jeep ready, and eventually also trying to figure out what went wrong so they could then determine what to do after. Brandon Boudreaux knew who was involved. He may not have seen who did this. The defendant has tried to explain away the evidence and questioning witnesses, asking if it's possible for a single piece of evidence to mean something other than what everyone knows it means. Is it possible that a Coke bottle broke in the street and one little shard stayed there right where Brandon Boudreaux's Tesla was located when it was shot? A shard that looks just like the glass from his car in the driveway inside the seats. Is it possible that a tire iron made that bullet hole in the Tesla? Is it possible that the GSR in the Jeep is hairspray and fireworks? Is it possible that a Jeep with Texas plates belonged to someone else who wanted to kill Brandon? Is it possible that Alex was in Idaho and called her on October 2nd at 8:02 for those 24 minutes? Don't fall for the defendant's questions about what is possible when the evidence shows exactly what occurred. The only explanation when we look at all of the evidence together is that this defendant conspired with her brother and others to try to kill Brandon Boudreaux. The state asks you to look at all of the evidence, not just the is it possibles, and find the defendant guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Thank you.
Now, let's not forget that she also said
closing argument.
Multiple times that the only person who had access to the address was Melani. Like they didn't know where he was. Melani's the only one that knew where he lived.
Right. It's pretty damning.
I would not want to be in her shoes right now.
She probably didn't sleep well last weekend.
Not tonight either.
Nope.
When a family breaks apart, it is a tragedy, with the devastation far-reaching, affecting many people. I am not exempt from tragedy, none of us are. But what we learn from it is most important. Because of this experience, I've studied the law and the judicial system, and that knowledge will stay with me forever. When we experience tragedy, we can grow stronger from the experiences, and then those experiences are not all negative.
Dizzy, can you pause just for a second?
You would think that often people in my position would feel.
So in the courtroom, we could barely hear her voice. So you guys watching on TV had an advantage that we did not. The entire gallery was completely silent, and all of us were straining forwards on the edge of our seat, trying to listen and hear what she was saying because it was so quiet. And you'll see in a couple of seconds here, the judge says, "Can you pull the microphone closer?" And she does, and it doesn't help us in the gallery, but maybe 5% louder. So, but as a former LDS, she's giving a talk right now. She's giving a Mormon talk at a sacrament meeting.
Right.
Like she's going through the formulaic things that you talk about when you give a talk in the Mormon church. But it's not about that. It's about conspiring to murder her niece's husband. So it's just so bizarre to me, but those talks are designed to play on your emotions, and that's what she's trying to do. I mean,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense that she falls back on what she's comfortable with, growing up with, comfortable with, that's her,
Right.
like you always say, her baseline, so that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. This is her baseline. Okay, Dizzy, thank you.
Feel defensive or angry. And from where I'm standing, I understand that very well. But I don't feel any of those things. You have watched me under pressure, under scrutiny, and even under attack. And I have shown you that I'm not on any of those things.
I'm going to object to character evidence and testimony that's not in evidence.
Ms. Daybell, can I have you pull that microphone a little closer, please?
There it is.
You can't be upset with people who are forced to look at your life from a distance or judge it through a lens that's being intentionally distorted or being at least very limited. Like the lens the state has shown you on this event. There's so much more going on that is not included to your view. The law prevents some of these things from being shared
I'm
in
going to
trial.
object, Your Honor, to improper.
Sustained.
2.
You have seen opinions formed by strangers trying to put together a narrative. I have shown you that basically there is no defense to what a person did not do or did not participate in. Other than what you've seen, which is no evidence that I made an agreement to commit a crime, because no such evidence exists. So I'm not defensive. I'm not angry. Nobody has all the pieces to this puzzle. It is complex. Like most families, this is a complex issue. And like the state, I was not there. But there is no agreement, no plan, no game.
Nope.
I am no stranger to tragedy. The breaking up of a family is tragedy. On June 25th, 2019, Brandon Boudreaux decided that I was responsible for his family tragedy. And I'm really sorry that he feels that way.
No, Your Honor, I'm going to object again to testimony.
All right. The jury is reminded that what is said in closing statements or closing arguments is not evidence. It is not testimony. The intent of the closing argument is for each side to argue what the evidence shows.
Trina K's irritation meter is
I
like
did
rising.
and have supported my niece Melani when she suffered tragedy as a young child and during this terribly difficult time in 2019.
Here we go.
Sniffle.
We read the text from Brandon to me on June 25th, 2019, where he claims that he will never stop until he proves that I am responsible. Well, here we are, almost 6 years later, and I'm charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. In order to have a conspiracy, 2 or more people have to make an agreement to commit a crime. There is no such agreement between me and my brother Alex, although I did love my brother Alex.
And I'm going to object again, Your Honor, to testifying.
Sustained.
There is no agreement that was shown to you between myself and Melani Boudreaux, although I love Melanie.
And I'm going to object again to testifying.
5.
Sustained.
I cannot tell you what happened that day on October 2nd, 2019, because I was not there.
And I'm going to again object to testifying.
6.
Please strike everything the defendant has said.
Strike it
Like
all.
everything.
Defendant
Everything.
is admonished. You cannot argue things that were not admitted into evidence.
Yep.
Hold on.
Prosecutor wasn't there.
Hold on.
Law enforcement wasn't there. Only
Did you see her roll her eyes over her left shoulder at the judge?
Oh, no, I missed that. Can we see that?
We need to go back like 30 seconds. She rolls
You don't
her
mind,
eyes
Dizzy?
over her shoulder at the judge.
Thank you. Yeah, I missed that.
And I'm going to object again, Your Honor, to testifying.
Sustained.
There is no agreement that was shown to you between myself and Melani Boudreaux, although I love Melani.
And I'm going to object again to testifying.
Sustained.
I cannot tell you what happened that day on October
Here it
2nd,
comes.
2019, because I was not there.
And I'm going to again object to testifying, and please strike everything the defendant has said.
All right. The defendant is admonished. You cannot argue things that
See,
were not admitted.
Yeah, she's like, yeah,
Prosecutor wasn't there. Law enforcement wasn't there.
F off,
Only
Judge.
Brandon knows
Right,
what happened before
exactly.
he called 911. Only Brandon said he will not stop. The fact that I supported Melani in her time of need does not make me against Brandon. I had nothing to gain by Brandon being hurt. Brandon has worked with law enforcement for almost 6 years to make sure that I pay a consequence.
I'm going to object to misstating the evidence.
7.
Sustained. The jury will determine what the evidence did and did not show.
Your job is to determine if I committed a crime, this crime, a conspiracy, an agreement, not cleaning out a garage, but an agreement to commit murder. You did not see an agreement. You did not hear an agreement. You heard Detective Duncan say that he had spent hundreds of hours going over my iCloud accounts. They have 19 years of my accounts, text messages.
And I'm going to object to
calls.
misstates the evidence and no.
If there was an agreement,
Hold on. The objection
She just-
sustained. The jury is reminded that they will determine what the evidence did and did not show. Go ahead.
She just keeps going.
if
Yep.
there was an agreement, they would have showed it to you. There is no agreement.
sniffle.
Yep.
We've all experienced tragedies in our lives, and naturally people want someone to blame, someone to pay a price. My brother is no longer here. We can't ask him about that day.
I can't believe that wasn't.
There were things
objected to.
presented in this case that
Yeah.
I did not know.
And I'm going to object again to testifying, Your Honor, and ask to strike.
That's 9.
Things that I saw, I thought,
And again, I'm going to already ask to strike.
All right. The defendant
10.
cannot testify to things that were not testified to from the witness stand.
because this is the theory the prosecutor wants you to see, it is limited. How can we say clearly when the law only allows for a skewed view of things? The devastation this family has gone through is the tragedy.
Which
After
family?
almost 6 years,
Yeah,
it's time.
Which
Right.
family?
all the families.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
State wish to give a rebuttal, please.
so 10 objections in
All right, the
like
state-
All right,
5
we're
minutes.
Pause,
The
pause
defendant
Susie.
guilty, and since
Pause.
they have that burden, they have the right to open.
We're about to get lit up because you could hear in the courtroom, and I don't think you could quite pick it up on the
Mhm.
court TV pool feed.
Mhm.
Trina K was getting pissed. Like
Mm.
every one of her objections, like kept getting louder and louder and more like irritated and more irritated.
Mhm.
And she's about to let loose. Like she's about to take the gloves off, and she's about to be like, okay, you're going to violate all of these 10.1 rules. Then
Mhm.
all right, you want to go there? Let's go there. And I'm going to
Mhm.
talk about it a little bit more than I've talked about it the entire rest of the trial. And I
Mhm.
dare you to file an objection or
Mhm.
or utter an objection. And Lori
Mhm.
doesn't, like the entire time.
Mhm.
But this rebuttal is one of my favorite moments of this entire trial and the other trial. Like all of them combined,
Mhm.
Trina K like throws it out there. Like she's got the flamethrower out, and she's like, she took the gloves off finally.
She's going scorched earth for sure. I
Yep.
noticed that her she got a little dry mouth, so I think she was just getting really really worked up. Then she kind of brings it down just a little bit. Like
Right.
to me, the emotion, she comes firing out, and then it does drop a little bit, but just
And
a
then
little.
it drops it, and then it drops again at the very, very end.
Yeah,
So,
like I think
to like be like, don't
I
be
think she-
afraid of me, jury. Don't be afraid of me, jury.
right.
It's okay. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the defendant.
right. Or also, I don't want to say the wrong thing because I'm being too emotional, and I'm a lawyer, and I have to be a little bit more even keel.
Yeah,
kinda.
no. And at the very beginning of this, no, she's not even keel. She is
No.
not. She's the
No.
most fired up I have seen her like
She's
ever.
what's that? I'm kicking ass and taking names.
Right. Okay, let's roll it.
Open and close the argument. Go ahead.
The defendant wants you to think that Brandon has it out for her. She has tried to insinuate that Brandon was involved with working with Detective Pillar for years just to get her. But what you heard was that Brandon has actually been working with law enforcement on multiple investigations, and that in fact, Melani Boudreaux is a subject of multiple investigations. So again, as the defendant sits up here and tries to portray and paint a picture for you of her innocence and sadness and family tragedy, she again misrepresents what was told to you at trial. She tells you there was no plan, but she ignores the facts and the evidence of a very obvious long plan. A plan that started when she began, this defendant, Lori Vallow, meddling in Melani and Brandon's marriage. And when that marriage was finally ending, this defendant continued to help her cousin, or her niece, Melani. She continued to aid her. And what we see in every one of these bits of evidence is this core group of people, this defendant, her brother Alex, Melani Boudreaux, and Chad Daybell. The four of them working together. Do we need to have words, a video? No, we do not. That is why there is that jury instruction on direct and circumstantial evidence.
We hear Melani's name again.
At what is going on here. And it screams to you a conspiracy by this defendant, by Melani Boudreaux, by Alex Cox, and by Chad Daybell to kill Brandon Boudreaux. Every action you see there, the defendant would like you to look at them individually and pretend that they don't all point to what happened on October 2nd. But everything they did leading up to then shows you a way to cover up and prepare for the murder of Brandon Boudreaux. When we talk about a plan and this defendant's actions, the most obvious and screaming piece of information is this defendant holding on to her brother's phone for days, holding on to the 480-351-9120 number for days while her brother is gone, with her Jeep, without the rear tire, without the back seat, with a gun with him. That is part of the plan. That is the assisting, that is the promoting, that is the conspiracy that this defendant wants you to pretend doesn't exist. We don't
How do we
need
know he had a
words.
gun
We have
with him?
actions that are obvious, and they're done by this defendant
Alex?
and her co-conspirators.
Well, because of the
The
gunshot
state asks
residue.
you to look at everything together, regardless of how many people want to cry up here, regardless of how many
Okay.
people want to try to testify. This is not evidence. What is evidence is what was presented to you in trial, and each piece of that tells you this defendant is guilty. And so I ask you to find her guilty of the conspiracy to commit murder against Brandon Boudreaux. Thank you.
All right, members of the jury, the case is going to be submitted to you shortly, but first, we're going to draw our alternate jurors. Again, we have extra jurors just in case someone becomes sick
Do you need to
or is
pause?
unable to proceed.
Nope,
So
not
we're going to
yet.
call
I'm a no vote.
3 alternate jurors. If you are an alternate juror, it may be disappointing to get to this stage in the trial and not be in the deliberation process, but I have in the past had to call back an alternate juror to come back in the jury room when a juror is unable to proceed. So the admonition would still apply to you until we call you and let you know that you're excused. If I don't see you again as far as an alternate, I want to thank you for participating in this process. We couldn't have done it without you. Now we're going to use our very scientific method and draw numbers out of a hat here.
He probably says that every trial.
He does.
Yep.
Juror 3, you're our
We're going to
first
pause
alternate. We're
after
gonna
this
draw a number.
busy.
16,
16, okay, and
7.
jurors 3, 7, and 16, 7.
Okay. Let me check my notes.
Okay. 3, 16, and then 7.
So juror 3 is a male. He initially started out as juror 7. He's an elected official of a nonprofit. He's divorced. He has 5 grown children, and he hasn't served on a jury before. I think he's the bald guy with a goatee, and I've seen him leaving. He leaves for lunch every day. Somebody else in the court saw him at Five Guys one day. And I saw him coming back from lunch off campus one day. So he's out. I don't know what that means. Juror 7 was the young DoorDasher. Okay, so he sits up on the top row. 2 down from juror 9. So juror 9 is what Tracy calls Captain Jack. There's a young lady next to him that's juror 8, and juror 7 is like a younger guy. He wears flannel most days. He's got long dark hair and some facial hair. Don't know much except he's been working for DoorDash for a month. He's single and he's never served on a jury before. Don't know much about him. Didn't notice much out of baseline with him during the trial. And then what's the last one? 16?
3-7-16. Yep.
I don't have many notes on her at all. I didn't write down what her job was. She is a younger gal, but I have noticed during the trial that she is one of the more studious note takers. So they're losing her notes for deliberations.
Okay. So originally it was 8 and 8, right? 8 male, 8 female, and then the one elder gentleman left. So now we've lost 2 more males and 1 female.
So juror 10 was a male and 3 was a male and
6.
7 was a male.
So
we've lost 3 males and 1 female from the original 7 and 7.
So it's 5 and 7.
8,
5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. 5 males, 7 females. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Just wondering. Yeah. Okay. Let me just make a note of that. 5 males now and 7 females. Do you think that favors, which side do you think that favors, if it favors a side at all?
I was really worried that juror number 5 was going to be one of the alternates. Like I was literally, no, I wasn't literally on pins and needles because that would have hurt. I was figuratively on pins and needles, hoping that juror 5 wouldn't be kicked out because he has been the most studious note taker. He was on the edge of his seat at appropriate times. He was leaning back at times when I wasn't sure what that meant. But today, during both closing statements, Trina Kay's and Lori's, he was leaning back. So that doesn't mean anything. When he's leaning back for both sides, it doesn't mean anything. He's just like trying to be relaxed and comfortable. But the guy that I thought might be one of the eligible jury foremen was juror number 3. And you know, he was like an older, middle-aged guy that's just like kind of the guy that everybody's going to look to and be like, hey, do you want to be the jury foreman? But we'll see. Do we want to start answering questions?
Sure.
All right.
Before we do, Widespread Panic had a question, and I think Trace kind of dropped. We were wondering about the ages of the kids, and in the opening, I'm sorry, Brandon says at the time of the incident, he says the names of his kids. I'm sorry, he says the ages of his kids.
Okay.
So, Trace, do you? I'm not. Should I say their names? Because he said their names. Brandon said their names.
And that's on Court TV. That's like on public.
Yeah.
Feed. Yeah. Then it should be okay.
All right.
Just first names.
But, yes.
But we know their last names.
I know, right? All right. Let's just say the oldest was 9. Now I'm pretty sure he said at the time of this happened, the eldest was 9.
That
so
makes
whatever
sense.
I say, just add.
Right.
Yeah. So add say 6 years, 5 years, because we're not sure when they were born.
Right.
So 9 plus 5, so 14. And I think Trace, you said this already. You may have already said this. So the oldest would be 14, and then 9, and then. Wait, 5 years. I'm adding 5 years. So 14, 10, 9, and then 7.
Okay.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, because then the oldest 3 would have been in school back then in 2019. So you dropped them off at school, and then the youngest would have been 3 years old and probably still in diapers. You know, that's the age where they're going through potty training. So that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I found his Facebook page, and he's got, or he and Jenny have 2 more kids.
Yes.
So yeah, that's yeah.
And today in the waiting area, while we were waiting to get into court, 2 ladies showed up who haven't shown up to court before, and they're like, "Hey, where do we sit down?" So I am now the official Maricopa County Superior Court 5th floor tour guide. So
I'm telling you, you need like a flag. You need a pole with a fflag and a
right.
bullhorn.
Yep. Yeah, and a whistle.
Yeah.
No, no, you can't do that. But they're like, okay, we came in and we have a number, or no, we've been put on the list. They said we've been put on the list, and I'm like, there's no list. It's public seating is first come, first served. And they're like, oh no, we're with Brandon Boudreaux's family, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you're gonna get seated all at the same time. You go into like the victim's family room all at the same time. And they were there way before, like an hour and a half before that usually happens. So I was like, come sit down in the media area, get yourselves comfortable. But it turns out they are the neighbors of Brandon Boudreaux, and their daughter is best friends with Brandon's oldest daughter.
Oh,
so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, they were all worried. They're like, we need to sit in the right spot. Are we sitting in the right spot? I'm like, you'll get taken care of. And they do take care of the victims' families and associated, people very well at that courthouse. They do a really good job.
Good to hear. Yeah, I guess questions. You were talking about questions.
Yep. Chris Ann Henry became a YouTube member. Awesome.
Yes. Thank you. Always good to see new members.
Yes. Cher, another new member. And Barry Adams, another new member.
Good job. We see Barry and Tanika and Florida PI Sam often.
Oh, yeah. I love Florida PI Sam. She did something on the trial yesterday that I need to go back and watch. You must be so tired. Oh, my gosh. Will you get to rest tomorrow? No, I won't get to rest tomorrow. It's up and Adam early tomorrow. We need to make sure that all the seats that need to be gotten get gotten tomorrow, because there's going to be super heightened public scrutiny for tomorrow. So no rest tomorrow, but there will be rest the day after tomorrow. That's the story of this trial. No rest tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow.
Right. How confident are you that they'll come to a verdict tomorrow? What's your level of confidence?
93.6%.
93.6.
Yep. Tune it in on your FM dial.
You heard it here first. 93.6% confidence level.
And yes, I do get tired. This case wears me out. I will tell you my Groundhog Day quote when it's all done, but not prematurely.
Oh, please do.
Loss? No, we're gonna see justice in this case, so I will not feel loss. What do I do now? Yes, 100%. And I have to go back to the roots of my channel, which were finding justice for Abby and Libby. And then I moved on to finding justice for JJ and Tylee and Charles and Tammy and now Brandon. And the next one is going to be finding justice, helping to find justice for somebody. So wherever that road takes me, that's where it will go. But yes, what do I do now? What do I do next? That's a very valid question. And I literally get asked that probably 3 times a day in the courthouse. What's next?
You get in this routine, right? Even though it's tiring and it's draining, you just get into this routine, and it's amazing how when it's gone, there is kind of that sense. I can identify with that. What therapists said, there is that sense of like, I'm glad it's over, but I'm also like missing it, because your body gets used to it,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
longer trials, right? Was the Delphi? How long were you there for Delphi? Were you there for
Let's see it. I went to the August 1st hearing, and then I was there through the end of October. So August, September, 3 months.
Yeah, I mean that's enough time for your body, your mind, your spirit, everything to
Right.
get used to it.
Which blows your mind in this, because it's today was day 5,
Yeah.
and we're at jury deliberations on day 5.
Mm-hmm.
That it's mind blowing.
Yep.
I mean, how many
Fast.
days did Karen Reed go? Karen Reed's into the 20 something days. Are they into the 30 something days? I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
But their jury deliberations are probably going to go a lot longer than this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yes. So the judge said everybody needs to stay within 20 minutes of the courthouse, because they will give 20 minutes notice. Honestly, it probably will be more like 30 minutes notice once a verdict is reached.
And there is going to be a delay, right? Like maybe 5 minutes or something, or
yes, correct.
5 minute delay. Okay.
So I will have it on Twitter before you see it on Court TV pool feed.
Okay. So no spoiler alerts. We're going to tell our chat that, because I'll be looking, but I'm going to be like, no spoiler alerts. We want to watch it. Watch it live.
Yep, absolutely. I didn't see them being upset. I think they were a little confused, like, what do I do now that I'm an alternate? But I didn't see them being upset. And we just talked about what their bio history was. Yeah, number 16, she was the one taking a bunch of notes. Absolutely. Yes, I think we're all pretty confident of that. Alex, Adam. Don't
Definitely
forget Adam.
Stacy's
Summer.
And Summer, yep. Stacy passed away. That's
Yep.
Melanie's mom. Stacy was the oldest.
Right. Yeah, we talked about this before. I think they could. Why is she asking about data locating a person in specific aisles in Walmart when they were talking about one smartphone in Rexburg? She was confused about Google location data versus tower. Okay, I got to step away real quick. Can you handle chat for like 1 minute?
Yeah, are you going to watch the end of your game?
No. No, I have something else and going on in the background.
Go,
step away for 1 minute.
Yep, go. I think, Heather, at that point, because they said that they were both located at the Walmart. So I think that she was saying, can you how specific can it get? And Special Agent said, he said, not specifically, but he said you could get pretty close, only because depending on your phone, if you have like 30 apps and 29 of them have tracking information on them, then they could possibly locate you to a specific aisle. It's getting, the technology is getting to the point where they can track you. So I think she was just asking because they said in direct that they were both her and Alex were at this Walmart. So yeah, love always. That's Charlie. Joe's dog picture. That's Charlie. And at the end of the stream, I'm sure you've seen, or maybe you haven't, if you're brand new, Joe does a nice tribute to Charlie as an ending. OnlyFan, you asked something about aggravating phase. The judge Judge Boreski did talk about aggravating circumstances. Dangerous allegations, an accomplice would be sufficient. And then they talk about Lori she requested probable cause and she doesn't want a hearing. So that the judge asked that. So he did talk about aggravating circumstances, whether or not that's going to come on or when that's going to come out. I'm not sure. Whoa, Joe. You're freaking me out.
All
right.
Disaster averted. You
All right,
leave delivery instructions to just leave it at the door, and they insist on ringing the doorbell anyway. What are you gonna do?
Nice. So it looks like you guys are going to win.
Oh, wow. No way.
116 to 107 with 7 seconds left.
Yeah, unless you have Reggie Miller on your team, you're not overcoming that.
Yeah. Not in 7 seconds. All right. Up to looking. You know what? Everybody wrote off the Pacers, but here they are.
Like I said, they've been underdogs the whole way.
Yep. And it's a young team, right? I think the Thunder are the youngest team, but Pacers are pretty young too. So
yes, yeah, they are. Yep.
Watch out for the Pacers.
All right, where's Hellcat at? Come on, Hellcat, come up here and talk about that a little bit.
Sorry,
up and talk about your Thunder.
It's a long series. It's only one.
It
game,
is. Yes. 2-1 is not insurmountable in any way, shape, or form.
Yep. The next game is pretty important. Either you're up 3-1 or it's 2-2. So that's the next game's pretty important. Sorry, yes, Capri. We'll talk baseball if you want. Sports ball. And then other people are like sports ball. Ugh. All right.
Right. Yeah.
Hellcat went nighty-night, according to the therapist. Therapist, says she went to sleep. There's a couple more questions. I think I've just had one too. I don't know if that got started or not, but yeah. All right, let's see who else. What else?
Anyone think Lori has good selective hearing? Oh, absolutely. She's a narcissist. She wants to hear what she wants to hear, and she doesn't want to hear what she doesn't want to hear, and she doesn't want to hear anybody tell her no, which is why she filed more motions to dismiss Judge Boreski and Judge Green. And then Judge Kevin Wine ruled on those motions to decline them, so he's next. So her next motion is going to be a 3-way motion to dismiss Judge Boreski and Judge Green and Judge Wine because they all told her no. What are we going to do with her? Multiple investigations. Yep, we heard that very clearly.
So what other? I mean, Melani is one thing. Who else is? Do you think they're going to drag Chad down for this because he now clearly is implicated, or are they just going to be like, yeah, enough's enough?
I honestly, if I'm the prosecutor, if I'm Trina Kay, and I don't think she's the chief prosecutor for Maricopa County, so whoever her boss is needs to talk to the family and be like, do you want us to keep prosecuting these things, or have you had enough justice?
Enough, at some point. Yes, he's on the DP, Love Always, but I mean, there's always that small chance, small chance, I guess, of an appeal, or he'll be let out and like, I don't know. Yeah, I would think enough's enough at this point.
Madley has a question. Let me find Madley's question if I can in here. Oh, here we go. Boop.
Yes.
How many people would you estimate waited in line and did not get into court today and other days? I think everybody in line today got in line. I think the only day that they didn't was Monday. So Lori did her antics on last Friday, right? Where she got thrown out of court. And that went viral, and a lot of people saw that. And so they came to court to be casual trial watchers on Monday because of the crazy things she did on Friday. So there were 10 to 12 people that didn't get in to see her on Monday. But I think that's the only day that everybody in line has not actually gotten into court. And I think it was just those viral trial watchers. I say that, but there were 3 people that I met that were like at the back of that line. And on Monday, there were so many people and there were extra seats left in the media seating area that they let the public come sit with the media that day. And there were 3 people that sat next to me that were those public people that sat with the media. And we talked a little bit, and they've actually come also to the last 2 days. So they didn't just come Monday. They also came yesterday, and they also came today. So they're a little bit more than just the casual trial watcher. They're actually interested in seeing how this plays out. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess multiple cases would be Melanice, of course, but then there's Melanie Gibb. I kind of forgot about her. A couple of people are talking about Melanie Gibb and Zulema. Do you think Zulema? I think there's an outside.
Well, okay. Well, there's a difference between multiple cases and multiple suspects / co-conspirators.
Right.
Multiple cases means there are multiple crimes that they're looking at her for. So they're looking at her for involvement with Brandon Boudreaux. They're probably also looking at her for involvement with other crimes that were committed besides just the attempted murder of her estranged husband. And does that have to do with Tammy? Was she involved with, with a conspiracy to murder Tammy with the kids? Was she involved with that at all? With Chad? With Charles. Gosh darn it. Was she involved in any way with the conspiracy to murder Charles? I mean, multiple cases means multiple crimes, not multiple suspects. So let's look at all of the crimes that Melanie Boudreaux may have been involved with. I wonder from the public information aspect, how we can get information to those crimes that she may be investigated for. Like if it's an active investigation, can they share that or not share that with us? I think if we were in the state of Florida, they probably could because they have the Sunshine Law, but other states don't have that Sunshine Law. So we may not know until charges are or are not filed against her.
Now, yesterday we were talking. So Tylee was September 8th, JJ September 23rd, Brandon shot at October 2nd, Tammy passes away October 19th. So it's not a stretch that Melanice was involved somehow with Tammy.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how.
And the kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hermosillo investigated that. He's a rock star.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
He just got promoted to detective in 2019, and he had that case dropped in his lap. He helped solve it. He helped find the bodies eventually and pin it on Chad and Lori. I mean, and now he is the lieutenant of the entire detectives division in Rexburg. So he knows what's up. He was there today.
Yep.
He was actually standing right next to FBI Special Agent Nicholas Balance. The two of them were standing right next to each other. And if you could take pictures in the courthouse, I would have snapped that picture, but I would have got my butt kicked out immediately. You can't take pictures in the courthouse, but that was a picture. Him standing next to Nick Balance was a picture.
This was downstairs or upstairs?
No, it was upstairs on the 5th floor, right outside the courtroom.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you said yesterday, Hermosillo is shorter, right, on the short side. So
yeah, I said 5'3", 5'4". He's probably 5'6", 5'7"
Okay, and then Balance is a little bit. Is he's taller than him? Nick is
taller.
Yeah,
Balance is probably 5'11", maybe 6 foot. I don't think he's 6 foot. I think he's probably slightly under 6 foot, but around 6 foot.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would have been a good picture. You should have gone up and gotten a selfie.
I would have gotten tickled. I would have gotten tickled by Nick Balance. Oh my God.
Oh my! It's getting late.
It is.
That's a clip right there. That's a clip.
Tickled by Nick Balance.
That's great.
Oh my gosh.
That's really funny.
Maybe tackled. Tackled was the appropriate word in that.
Debbie, thank you for your super sticker. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Debbie. We appreciate it. Oh, earlier I sent, you guys don't know, but Barry Adams sent $10 to our chat. Said Trina K and Joe Schmoe, nice meal at Pink Pony Fund. I texted that to Joe earlier, but
unfortunately, the Pink Pony closed down last year, so
did it? Oh,
we're gonna have to find another spot.
All right.
Maybe the Purple Pony. All right, you about ready to wrap this up?
Sure. I just wanted to, oh yeah, you already mentioned the 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. Real quick. Oh, you had, I had some votes and you had a poll. So
I did.
While you end your poll. So we had 300 votes, which was awesome. Did the state prove their case? 94% of you said yes. 5% of you said no. We talked about what Mr. Balance looks like. 130 votes was, do you think the evidence is stronger in this trial or in Charles's trial? 41% of you thought the same. 36% thought Charles, and 22% of you thought Brandon. That the evidence was stronger in Charles's trial than Brandon. So I thought that one kind of threw me. I thought, my personal opinion is I thought it was stronger in Brandon's. But what do you think?
I did too, but I heard other people at the trial today saying they thought the other one was stronger.
Okay.
So
yeah. All right. So what's the results of your poll? What do you have?
All right. So how long will the deliberations last? Oh my gosh. Poll complete, 69 votes. 69 votes.
Nice.
Nice. 2 to 4 hours. 52%. That's the majority. People think it will last 2 to 4 hours.
That's where I landed.
Less than 2 hours was 27%, so about a fourth. So we have a half and a fourth at less than 2 hours, and half at 2 to 4 hours. And then 4 to 8 hours, 17%, and then more than 8 hours is 2%.
Yeah, judging from the Charles, I had 2 hours and 20 minutes. You said it was like less than 2 hours, though.
It was less than 2 hours. Yeah. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I think I went with 2 to 4. That's always the safe one for me, because I figure it always takes them at least an hour to get through jury instructions, and then an hour to kick around, and then they don't count when they take lunch, right? They don't count that as deliberating because you're not supposed to deliberate. Is that? No, you're not supposed to deliberate during lunch, but do we as the public know that they're not deliberating at lunch, like they're taking a lunch break? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they factor that in or not.
Do we know when to stop the clock?
Yeah, I don't know. So, all right, 11:30 here on the East Coast.
Yep.
8:30 for you. You have to get up. You're gonna get up early enough to get there by 7:30 or 8. You said, yeah.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. Because you're right. Verdict Watch. I remember with Sarah Boone, they all came out. You remember with Charles, right? Wasn't there more media presence?
Yes, there was. It was very busy. So I got to get my place in the media line. Trace in the case has to get her place in the public line. So we will be there bright and early.
With bells on, bells and whistles, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
And it starts at 10 o'clock, which is 1 o'clock our time. So 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. So we'll start streaming at 1, and then we'll do another stream, right? We'll do a final stream.
Absolutely.
So look forward to that, guys. And I will say have a great evening, chat. Thank you to mods on both sides, Dizzy for running the show in the background. Fantastic job. What snacks did you get, Dizzy? Because I'm hungry. I want to eat that right now.
Right.
And again, thank you to Aaron, and thank you to mods on both sides. And guys, if you haven't subscribed, please do so on both. We have a lot of people that are straddling both streams, and we really appreciate that support. So
absolutely. Thank you, mods. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Squeegee. Always appreciate hanging out with you and your input and insight. So we will catch you same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow night, right?
Absolutely.
And let's hope for a verdict.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night, guys. All right. See you, Joe.
See ya.
Good evening. Come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of Joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening. Come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of Joe and put up your feet. Let's talk about the latest news and all about true crime. We can make a difference if we put in the time. Oh, we can make a difference if we put in the time. Good evening. Come and find you a seat. Grab yourself a cup of Joe and put up your feet.